We are called to order. City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Juniman,
Here.
Councilmember Knutson,
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio,
Here.
Councilmember Cave, Councilmember Cave,
He needs to unmute.
I see her name, but I do not hear her. Councilmember Cave, Mayor Abrams.
I am here.
and
Councilmember Cave, if you can hear us or if you're having technical difficulty, do you want to contact Michael Folds? Okay, council members, the first item tonight is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll do a roll call vote. And tonight, the order is going to be Councilmember Knutson, Councilmember Villavicencio, Councilmember Cave, and Councilmember Juniman. Councilmember Knutson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio,
Aye.
Councilmember Cave. We can't hear you, Councilmember Cave. Mr.
Mayor
Folds?
Abrams, yeah, my apologies, Mayor and Council. I'm getting in contact with Councilmember Cave and we will get it figured out.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Juniman?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We have no unfinished business tonight. We do have one item of new business, and this is the review of the 2020 Community Survey. Mr. Sharon, you are the presenter tonight. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to co-present this with our Assistant City Manager, Mike Sable. He is going to go over a couple of the key details right off the top. If you give me a second to pull it up here.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to see in your screen
Yes, we can.
the results. Okay, I'm going to have Mike Sable give you an introduction, and he's going to cover some of the methodology and the background in the survey. I'm going to get into some of the numbers. So, Mike, if you want to take it from there, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. Mike Sable, Assistant City Manager and HR Director. And the community survey that we did, we partnered with a firm that's called the National Citizen Survey. They are a nationally recognized survey research firm that supports local governments around the country. They are also a partner with a firm called Polco, which is a company that we also use to do online engagement opportunities. And so you may have seen some Polco surveys that we do that's very specifically targeted to our residents. But the National Citizen Survey, as I said, is a benchmark survey that is used by cities and counties across the country. They've been doing this work for over 30 years. And what they try to do is from a methodology standpoint is they identify 1,200 households in the city of Maplewood, and they did a targeted mailer to those households. You may have also noted that we sent some notices in the Maplewood Living to notify folks that this was coming. And what the National Citizen Survey attempts to do is tries to identify the residents in our community, and they give them an opportunity to respond to a survey question that's about 150 questions. And members who are selected, members of the community who are selected have the option to do it either in paper form, or they have a website with a very specific address for them that they can respond to those questions. And then what the survey firm does is they take the number of respondents, which in this case was 427 households, and they mirror that data to our actual census data so that they can make sure that the responses reflect the community. So if they oversampled, for example, a certain population, they could do weighted averages for other responses to make sure that the actual numbers reflect the community as best as they possibly could. You'll see that there was a 17% response rate to that mailer. That is a pretty typical response and it provides some valid statistical data. I will note that it does carry a margin of error of 5%. So for those who remember their statistics courses, that means that in 19 out of every 20 surveys done, the responses would be consistent within 5 points plus or minus of the numbers that you see. So it is a statistically valid sample survey. The methodology is consistent with what you would see from survey professionals. And the survey was in the field, quote unquote, beginning September 29th through November 24th. So it included a fairly broad time frame so we could get the broadest cross section. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sheeran.
Okay, hang on. So this back and forth on the mute, unmute. So what we looked at were a couple of key measures. We looked at overall quality of life, safety and emergency preparedness, economic opportunity, parks and recreation, and some of those challenges that are directly related to COVID-19 and the issues that it presented. The last category, COVID-19, is a custom category. What the beauty of the other categories are, because it's a national survey, we're able to benchmark across the United States. And so we can see where we stack up to other communities. A good example is, how do you feel about the value of taxes, right? Everybody's, going to have their own opinion about that. But now we could look and say, okay, it might be lower than we hope, but is it in the realm of what other communities are saying? And for us, it is that particular question. But that's just a specific example. As everything we do, it all ties back to the strategic plan. So while we ask a lot of different questions and a lot of different issues, we are looking at this and we will examine this and understand and ensure that as we analyze this, it is in the lens of the strategic plan that includes community inclusiveness, fiscal stability, infrastructure, asset management, integrated communications, operational effectiveness, and targeted development. Overall, we're doing well. Our rates are kind of on par as they were a couple of years ago. We did this, like I said, in 2018. So it gives us a good apples to apples comparison over 2 years. The thing I think that both we realized in the numbers and the folks who conducted the survey for us noticed nationwide, because of COVID, because of some of the civil unrest, because of a lot of the rhetoric that was happening during the election, some of these categories have gotten skewed, and you'll see that in certain places along the way. But as you can see, 80% good to excellent, and some of the results that were on par with 2018 that we really pay attention to, especially I as the communications manager, image, people who want to stay in the community and recommend living in Maplewood. As we know, word of mouth is the best, is the best advertising most of the time. Community connectedness. While we are really doing well on that overall image of community, people don't feel connected to our community. This is a little bit below national benchmark, but it's within par. But it is still a little disappointing. But it also gives us an opportunity for growth in the areas ahead. Sense of community, 48%, civic pride, social events, neighborliness. This might be connected to a couple of things. While we're a suburb versus, say, sort of a more densely populated urban area. And then the two things that I'm going to key in on here, as you see, one of the things that I thought was really valuable in this is we got to see key demographics. And one of the things I really wanted to make sure is when people say all residents feel welcome, 64% is good, better than 50%, attract diverse backgrounds. Again, it's what we're going for. All of with the police, the park and rec department, our public safety department, fire, all of the engagement opportunities are geared toward exactly that, making sure all residents are welcome and attracting diverse backgrounds. Well, those are good numbers. When you break them down, we have some work to do. As you see, attracting people from diverse backgrounds, the way they broke it down for us, the survey company, is white alone versus non-white alone. While people who are white feel all residents are welcome. People who are not 100% white, we have a real opportunity to gain in that area. We have a lot of new members of our community, and that's an opportunity for us to really grow on that. Attracting people from diverse backgrounds, again, you see a little bit of a drop off. Valuing and respecting residents from diverse backgrounds, you see a little bit of a drop off there. And taking care of vulnerable residents, it's a little ironic in the numbers, and it's probably up to us to dig in to figure out why. But as you see, people who aren't 100% white were identified in the survey as 100% white, 73%. The other aggregate, I'm not going to get into it in the numbers, but I will tell you, you see the same pattern of really positive ratings for making all residents feel welcome and attracting diverse backgrounds in the population that's 55 plus. But when you get into the population that is 18 to 35, which is the more diverse population, you see similar drop-offs in numbers. So knowing that, one of the opportunities we're trying to do is within our public safety outreach and our park and rec outreach and in our community engagement, we're really trying to micro target communities that we know are either people who are new to our community or people who don't fit the traditional, or outside the traditional demographics that Maplewood has seen over the course of its history. This year we asked, this is a very specific question, we asked this year, 22% of folks attended one of our public safety outreach events. Because of COVID, we didn't have as many, but over the last 2 years, thanks to the public safety and again, Park and Rec and Public Works, we've had, I would say, at least 100 outreach events. So 22% of folks who filled out the survey did attend one of those public safety outreach events. 90% rated good to excellent, which means when we do get into the community and we do talk to people, we're making positive impacts. But the question is how do we raise that 22% up to 60% and eventually 80%? Feeling of safety. This is one of those weird ones where the numbers just, the numbers, I really want to know what people are thinking in this and how they rated what they thought. So you can see feeling of safety. Overall, if you look at that last bar, is 64%, but yet in commercial areas, 82, in their neighborhood, 90, in violent crime, 91. So how when we ask the question, because basically the way this got asked, it all got asked individually. So we ask an individual question overall, how safe is Maplewood? 60%. But when you ask people specifically, commercial areas, in their own neighborhood, violent crime, property crime, they all rate those individual categories high. Is this the effect of some of the rhetoric we heard from political candidates? Is this the effect of what we saw unfold over the course of the summer, night in, night out on television and in the newspaper? Why is there a discrepancy there, and how do we dig into it? Next, we talk about emergency preparedness. Overall, as you see, this is a little different because this one I actually did go in and looked at 2018 versus 2020. And this is the one area where we saw significant increases, which is really, really important because a lot of the other areas where we saw ups and downs, the city itself didn't do anything different. It stayed the same course or worked even harder in some cases. This is one of those areas where the community actually did recognize that there was a payoff. The community actually saw that we were making progress in these areas. I'm not going to go through every number, but I think the most important one is, and maybe this is one of those positive effects from COVID, that last set of bars, emergency preparedness, a significant increase. Overall quality benchmarks, value of taxes, customer service, 81%. Value of taxes, 55%. That was up significantly from 41% the last time around, but again, it fit the national benchmark. Economy. With COVID-19, one of the things we really wanted to look at is what's the economic impact. 90% of the people who filled out the survey said it was the most important element in how they went about their daily business over the next 2 years. 60% economic health favorably. They did feel Maplewood was generally a good place to live. The one thing I want to skip down, the one thing I do want to highlight is quality of business services and establishments. It's up slightly from 2018. Again, that's one of those areas where we've made a lot of progress over the last 3 to 4 years. So people are starting to see it pay off. But here's the one thing that we're still not out of the woods on COVID-19. Only about 15% believe the economy will have some kind of positive effect on their income in the next 6 months. I'm going to go over these quick because we're going to do the park and rec again during the council meeting. But as you can see some of the numbers, again, we really stress the importance of and have made a really significant investment in our parks and rec and our nature center and our overall, more so our overall outdoor space and open space. And you can see here that folks really appreciate that and rate it highly. And again, this is overall, so quality of parks, quality of trails, quality of those amenities. You can see the why relationship is starting to pay off as people feel the quality of our rec center and our recreation facilities is going up. I also believe, and we could speculate, but we could also go and ask follow-up questions. Our investment in the Wakefield Park and Wakefield Community Building, again, we're starting to see some payoffs there. Walking paths, excellent. One of the things I want to point out here is we really saw some growth in this because when COVID hit, we in the communications, made a really specific pitch to let people know we have over 50 parks and preserves for you to get out, get healthy, but still stay socially distant so you're not cooped up. So thanks to our former nature center staff and some of the folks who worked in park and rec, we were able to get out and highlight some of the availability of walking paths and walking trails. Natural environment, again, people rate it highly. They think it's important. And then this is the key, and we're going to get into this again when we present this with the task forces, but how the city should pay. And we asked, we laid it out. We essentially said there's a couple of different ways we could do this. We let folks know that overall, our park and rec programmings, the city invests a certain amount. We are able to recoup about 50% from user fees. The rest is paid for by taxes. And then again, the same structure when it comes to the nature center. The nature center, only about 10% of the overall city expenditure is recovered by user fees. And we said, look, these are the options we have. Should we do a partnership sharing program? Should we increase participant fees or keep the current funding system, which might increase property taxes? So you see overwhelmingly what is really, really heartening as a public employee, that people don't want that privatized. They don't trust the private sector is going to do what it needs to do there. And then the other piece of this is, overwhelmingly, what we set out to do is what our community actually does want us to do, is create cost-sharing programs. With this, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike, I don't have the updated slides. I apologize, but you have a couple of key elements to tag on here as we wrap up.
Well, I think, Joe, in the interest of time, I think I would open it up to the mayor and council for any direct questions about some of the survey results, or if there's anything that would be helpful or useful that you would want either a deeper dive or questions for clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. Thank you for that report, both of you. You know, I think that the results were very telling. It was helpful for me to take a look at this, and certainly it's very apparent that COVID has had an impact on some of the results. But probably the most challenging fact that came out of this were the challenges posed by COVID-19. And of those responding to the survey, about 1 in 5 responded that they had suffered either a loss of employment or income due to the pandemic. 1 in 5. And 1 in 10 of those responding indicated that paying for food or housing was an issue for them. And so it really confirms the fact that we're doing the right thing in terms of not raising our taxes, of being responsible stewards, because we have residents and businesses in our community that are really suffering the impact of the pandemic. So thank you for your report. I'm going to open it up and we'll go to our council round robin for any questions or comments. Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking at it, the impact of COVID was, although devastating for a lot, it wasn't as bad as I thought it could be. So I think, the message in here is Maplewood's a solid, good place to live, and there's hope. We've got systems in place and a lot of opportunities for people to prosper when this COVID thing is diminished. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Yes, I actually really enjoyed going through the survey results and was surprised at some parts and not surprised in other parts. One question I had was, as I was reading it, I was trying to see if there was any information about if the survey was available in any other languages, and if so, how was that communicated?
Mr. Sable, Mr. Sharon.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, Councilmember Villavicencio. The option for taking the survey in another language was possible. The expectation or the understanding was that because it was a mailed survey, that the instrument that household would have to follow up with the survey firm to make accommodations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any
thank
other
you.
questions?
No, I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cave.
Yes, great report. I wasn't able to listen at the beginning, so forgive me if you said something and I didn't hear. But the citizen demographics, do we have a breakout of the people who filled out the survey, where they were actually from in Maplewood? Is my first question. Secondly, the questions that were asked to the citizens, I know you were benchmarking from 2018 and for a national survey. Were the questions created for our community specifically, or were they used as a generic national? Did we just use a generic question that we asked the people? And then third, you get into recreation and facilities. Was that broken down, and was that, my understanding with that is kind of difficult because we have a recreation center and we have a facility. Did people know what you were talking about? Was it the rec center you were talking about, or was it facilities outside that they could go use? And so I think I had a question there. I thought that was a little gray. So if you could answer those, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor, council members, Councilmember Cave. To your first question, we do not know to which addresses the 1,200 respondents got the notification. And the survey firm has that information. We do not have who took it and from which parts of the city. What we do have is sort of a demographic breakdown. We do ask some underlying questions about the age of the respondent, income levels in the community, number of people in their households, ethnic and racial background. So we can see that the cross section of the people who took it reflects the community as it is based on the census data. And so we do have some of that information. I just couldn't tell you address by address who were some of the respondents.
Mr. Sable, can I
Yes.
just interject here? Councilmember Cave, if you refer to page number 21 of 43 in your council packet, you'll see the demographics and the explanation of that. Okay. Mr. Sable, do you want to continue with the other answers? Thank you.
Yes, if we could just continue on that one though. My question was, if we have this information and because of the demographics are so challenging in Maplewood, I think it was very important that we know where these answers are coming from, because you have safety issues. You have a lot of total different answers you'd get from the north than you would from the south.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very important that we find out if where the majority of these questions, or if they really did represent all of Maplewood.
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Cave, we can follow up with the survey firm to see if they can give us a geographic breakdown of the survey results. We can certainly
That would be
ask them.
great.
Yep. Your second question was, some of these questions specific to the community, or were they shared, are they broadly worded? The short answer is it's a combination of both. The bulk of the survey questions are generic, and I'll give you just sort of examples. Overall quality of businesses and service establishments, variety of business and service establishments, vibrancy of commercial areas, employment opportunities. Those are types of questions that could be answered in any community around the country. Where we did have some very specific questions was with regard to recreation and programming and the nature center specific. We were given, I want to say 8 to 10 specific questions that we could ask regarding those things. And with the timeliness or with the recent closure of some of those services, that felt like an important piece of information to gather, because it could, it would help inform the task forces, but B, give a better sense for how the community sort of responded to those specific changes. And so that's, I would say the survey is broadly general to, they say, please rate the city of Maplewood as a place to live. And so, you could just insert Roseville, or you could insert another community, but some were very specific to us.
Mike and Councilmember Cave, if I might add, we also were able to ask some very specific questions around COVID-19, which we worked with the company to put together. The other piece of it was we had a couple of questions around police and public safety outreach that we were able to customize as well.
Thank you.
And then I think your last question was, when we talk about recreational facilities or different buildings, ultimately that's up to the person answering the question for how they interpret that. So I don't know if they mean specifically the MCC, or if they're talking about the Wakefield Community Building, or if they're talking about their school gym. It is open to interpretation of the person taking the survey, because it is it's not a live caller who could answer questions for clarity. So we are a bit at the mercy of the person who took the survey and filled it out.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And if I might add, there was a specific question that did ask for recreational centers. So it asked about rec centers. So, you would assume that everyone wasn't lumped in. All the other amenities weren't lumped in. So when you talk about recreational centers, it's probably the Y and Wakefield.
We can assume, though.
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have any questions, but I think it was interesting. Naturally, since we're hearing from the task forces tonight, how we should pay for recreational programs in the nature center. I think it was surprising to me, but and sort of encouraging in a way, because at least in the nature center task force, we were trying to look for all the possible ways of cost sharing and forming partnerships. So obviously we're on the right track. But I also thought it was interesting. Keep the current funding system, which would cause a property tax increase. That's interesting if you think about it. First of all, I don't know if that says, well, people just assume we were doing that anyway, or if they know that it's happening and they're okay with it. But those numbers are interesting. And I just have one comment, and I don't know that we can answer it question-wise, but in the feeling of safety for the overall, the 64 overall rating, I think